much for this kind introduction, and thank you very much for inviting me for this talk. I'll try my best to finish on time, even hopefully a bit less to catch the prayer time, inshallah. I was asked to basically discuss the role of treatment post-autologous stem cell transplantation in transplant-eligible patients with multiple myeloma. So there are two main concepts that we should go through. I'll very briefly go in discussion about consolidation therapy, and then we'll focus more on maintenance, and we'll at the end have a quick discussion about future role of newer novel therapies in maintenance as well. So to begin, consolidation therapy, as we all know, is a short period of treatment following autologous stem cell transplantation. The main goal for it is to deepen the response rate and hopefully improve PFS and overall survival. The main issue with consolidation therapy at this point, we really don't have strong evidence to support or basically say against the role of consolidation. Most novel or new clinical trials do not randomize consolidation. I think almost all of them do include a part of consolidation. There's a lot of subgroup analyses that I don't really think carries a lot of weight because, sorry, we don't really have a good randomized trial looking at this question, except a few. The EMN02 study basically did show an improved progression-free survival in patients who receive VRD consolidation following autologous stem cell transplantation. One of the fewer studies that actually had an arm that looked into consolidation versus no consolidation is the STAMINA study. Basically, this trial had an arm that basically assessed, had an arm that investigated the benefit of post-transplant consolidation versus no consolidation, which those patients go into maintenance directly. This analysis was not actually positive, and it showed that there's no benefit in adding extra treatment with consolidation therapy. There's a small caveat here. I believe that in some subset of patients who are high risk or after autologous stem cell transplantation or induction, we did not achieve a very deep response. There might be a role in consolidation for those patients, but I don't really have strong data to support the use of it in everyone, especially patients who had a good deep response initially, and they're not high-risk patients. So I'll jump into maintenance because we're going to be a bit short on time. As we all know, maintenance therapy initially started with the use of interferon. There was a lot of toxicity associated with it. Thalidomide was the second drug that was trialed. There was a lot of neurotoxicity associated with it as well. One of the earliest success stories in maintenance in multiple myeloma was with lenalidomide. There are around 4 studies early on that actually showed a benefit in using lenalidomide maintenance. This meta-analysis that was published a few years ago actually is I think one of the earliest trials that showed that there's actual an overall survival benefit. So if we can see here, the patients, so this is a meta-analysis including the IFM, Jemima, and the CALB trials. Among those patients, among all groups, there was a benefit of using lenalidomide maintenance compared to no maintenance at all. The median PFS was around 52 or 53 months compared to around 24. If we look at all subgroups, we see that there's a benefit in using lenalidomide maintenance, regardless of what their ISS stage, age, and risk stratification. A more newer trial, the Myeloma 11 study, I think we're all aware of it, did also study the use of maintenance lenalidomide versus observation alone. And in this study, if we can see here that basically both groups, the observation and the lenalidomide maintenance group, are quite equal. There's not a lot of differences between them. And there's around 37% patients who have high-risk disease as well. And again, looking at the progression-free survival, there is a improved PFS in patients who had received lenalidomide maintenance, as well as there's a trend towards overall survival and PFS2 later on as well. Again, if we stratify in the subset groups, both standard risk and high risk cytogenetics, we do still see this benefit. That's quite significant as well. Again, this just highlights patients who have no high risk cytogenetics versus single hit or double hit. This is just the distribution of the patients in the study, which we do see the benefit in maintenance as well. The only subgroup that we do not see a significant benefit in maintenance are patients who have more than one cytogenetic abnormality. This carries basically an unmet need that we still don't know exactly what to do with those patients. Nowadays, because we're having a more diligent assessment of risk stratification early on, I think this group will still need further treatment rather than lenalidomide alone. Going through the proteasome inhibitors, obviously I'll talk about later on, there was more than one IMiD that's now been trialed for maintenance as well, but we still don't have enough data to use it in clinical practice. The first proteasome inhibitor that was used in maintenance is obviously the bortezomib. The HOVON trial initially noted that among patients with high-risk disease, although it's a small study, it did show that patients with high-risk disease did benefit from the addition of bortezomib. The risk was almost close to patients with standard risk who did not receive treatment. I'll focus more on the newer trials. So the FORTE trial, basically it's a multi-center open-label randomized study. It looked at the use of KRD with transplant versus no transplant, and KCD with transplant. I'm focusing more on the maintenance side. So at the second endpoint, there was two groups, patients who had R versus carfilzomib R. And among those patients, the addition of carfilzomib did actually improve the overall PFS, the 3-year follow-up PFS. It was around 90% in the standard risk group versus 73%. And around patients who had a single high-risk cytogenetic, it was 69 versus 59, compared to patients who had double hit mutations, which was around 76 versus 42. So basically, there was obviously adding another drug will add toxicity, and that's always the question, should we balance adding more toxicity versus not? Neutropenia, recurrent infection, and vascular events related to carfilzomib was higher in the carfilzomib R group versus lenalidomide. Again, all groups have benefited from adding carfilzomib maintenance, except patients with amplification 1Q. This was not statistically significant. Otherwise, the remainders of the groups were actually showed benefit. Patients with again, double hit had a less significant benefit compared to the other group. Going now quickly into the ATLAS study. The ATLAS study, again, it's an open label, it's a phase 3 trial, randomized of course, comparing the use of carfilzomib, lenalidomide, dexamethasone, and then I'm focusing more at the maintenance side. So they added lendex carfilzomib versus lenalidomide alone. Although the problem is the number of participants are a bit smaller, there was one caveat in the study that I don't think they've really clarified in the report initially, but there was a lot of censoring in patients who had carfilzomib, lenalidomide, dexamethasone. Physicians and patients were allowed to stop treatment, and there was no real reporting of the cause for this discontinuation. So again, this is the characteristics for this group. So basically, at the end, this is just with a median follow-up of around 43 months. the MRD negativity was higher in the KRD group versus the lenalidomide group. Although, as I'm just highlighting, there was a lot of censoring in the KRD group versus the lenalidomide group, which was not clarified in the report itself. So again, as I mentioned, the extended post-transplant KRD maintenance, they called it maintenance, but is it consolidation maintenance? It did show an improvement in the PFS compared to lenalidomide, as you can see here. Lastly, the last proteasome inhibitor that we trialed was ixazomib. Again, this study is a very interesting study. There was a lot of talk about ixazomib being an excellent oral proteasome inhibitor, making life easier for patients. Although with such a long follow-up duration, ixazomib did not show the addition of ixazomib with RD to show any benefit in maintenance. The only point that I would like to highlight here is they actually looked at patients who had a sustained MRD negativity after stopping IRD maintenance after 2 years. The rate of MRD negativity did not actually drop significantly. This was the first or one of the earlier signals saying that probably there's a role of discontinuing maintenance in a small subset of patients who have had an extended MRD negative status. Moving on to anti-CD38 antibodies as maintenance. So one of the earlier studies looking at that was the Cassiopeia trial. It's a phase 3 trial looking in transplant-eligible patients with newly diagnosed myeloma. I'm focusing more on the maintenance part, so part 2. Basically, they initially received DARA VTD versus VTD alone and compared those 2 arms. The second part was comparing daratumumab maintenance. Maybe this is going to be easier. Comparing daratumumab maintenance versus observation alone. So unfortunately, nowadays, our standard of care is LEN. Comparing DARA with nothing, probably you will know that most likely you will find a benefit. Surprisingly, in this study, it was actually shown that patients who have had DARA in induction didn't really benefit much from additional DARA post in maintenance, which is again surprising. There was a lot of questions about whether to use DARA in induction only. Is there any role for DARA in maintenance? There was more studies that actually looked into this, and more recently we had the Origa trial that was reported just recently. So basically, this is one of the first randomized trials looking specifically at this question, whether daratumumab with lenalidomide as maintenance will add anything in this group. So basically, they initially had around 200 patients that was MRD positive post-induction / autologous stem cell transplantation, and those patients were randomized to either using DARA lenalidomide maintenance versus lenalidomide maintenance alone. And in those patients, we did actually see that there is a progression-free survival benefit. Around the follow-up period was around 33 months. 82% of patients were still in progression-free survival compared to 66% in patients who had lenalidomide alone. And the MRD negativity conversion rate was even higher in the patients who had DARA-R versus R alone. Again, now in this coming days or years, the aim was to try to deepen the response as much as we can with minimal side effects. So having a deeper MRD negativity is hopefully a surrogate for a longer PFS and OS. The other study that I'm going to mention quickly is the Perseus study, which is basically, this is a study that did not randomize the maintenance arm, but I'm just going to go through it quickly. It looked at using transplant-eligible patients, using VRD induction, followed by transplant, versus consolidation, and then the maintenance. Maybe this is going to be more easier to look here. So Dara VRD versus VRD, all had transplant. And again, as I mentioned before, most trials, they don't stratify or randomize with consolidation. Almost all groups achieve consolidation therapy. That's why it's going to be a bit difficult for us to have any conclusion regarding the role of consolidation specifically in such patients. However, there was an assessment of Dara R versus R alone in the patient who had Dara VRD consolidation. And as we can see here, there is a significant improvement in the progression-free survival at around 4 to 8 months. 84% of patients are still in remission, so versus 67%. Again, because now we have a longer PFS period, it's going to need a bit more time for us to actually reach overall survival benefit. Again, this is what we just talked about. One of the, just a few studies that I want to highlight. We still don't have the results yet of the maintenance arm of the GMMG HD7. I think this is going to be a very interesting study to answer this question. This is looked at another anti-CD38, isatuximab, with VRD versus VRD alone. There's another arm or randomization that looked at isatuximab, lenalidomide, maintenance with dexamethasone, obviously, and RD later on. Hopefully, we will get the results in the coming months. This will hopefully guide us towards having a better understanding of whether adding an anti-CD38 will actually have benefit or not. So going through all this data quickly, I think we have still an unmet need in patients with high-risk disease. Very limited data actually looked specifically at patients with high-risk disease in maintenance. The data supporting bortezomib use is actually not the strongest, but we still use it. Whether adding MRD testing and incorporating it in discontinuation versus using long-term maintenance, I think this is a very interesting question that we will get an answer soon. And whether the use of consolidation/maintenance strategies, we're adding new novel agents. I know the price is quite prohibitively expensive, but if you want to reach the deeper remission and deeper MRD negativity, I think there are a lot of active clinical trials now looking at the use of bispecifics and other immunotherapies in consolidation and maintenance therapy. With that, I conclude my talk, and I'm happy to answer any questions.